You okay, my video is on. So what you see is there's a stick. This is a stick. This is a stick here. I'm taking. Let me just take. These are some stick I'm using, and there are those two sticks. So I'm going to put my camera to focus on the paper that is down there. That is where I'm going to do my writing. So I put the sticks together. Yeah, I'm trying, and then I focus, and now focus on the paper. You see, I focus it on the paper until my paper is focused, and then with my pen, I can be able to put my hand and be able to teach. So I'll be able to teach with the pen. So I don't know if you're able to see my hand. I'm able, the screen sharing, yes, my hand is calm. So I'm trying to move my hand to teach. It takes a bit of time. So that is how I do. Say, for example, let's say I've moved the paper from being in line, but I'm putting it sideways so that because I write sideways like that. So let me just adjust a bit the camera on the pen once, or just to focus on the paper. And sometimes you can be able to put, once you've gotten the right position, you put on the table where you'll be writing, you put some kind of a sellotape so that you know when you place your paper, you just start. So let's say I want to teach about mathematics comparison. So I want to teach about, so my hand, not, I don't know why it's not showing. So can I write John Ahenda? I should be able to say. So you're able to say I've written John Ahenda there. So this is showing how the teaching with the smartphone. Teaching with the smartphone works. Okay, so whatever you show on your screen, your students should be able to say. But then you see, like here, the challenge is I'm presenting to you on Meet, and I'm also presenting that with the phone. So the phone, I can just even record the lesson while that. So let me teach you now. So let's say we want to teach comparison in mathematics. Okay. So it's a bit slow, but should be able to focus it so that it takes the whole screen if possible. And you put the paper in a way that you slanted, in a way that you also write. Okay, there. Okay, they're a bit it has gone too big. I'm trying to focus it, but you can take your time. Once you've got the right position for these things to sit, I'm trying to focus it on the phone and move the paper so that I'm looking at my phone, so that whatever. So once you've gotten the right position where the paper stays, okay, now I've got it. It is there. So I can now be able to teach. So our topic of today's lesson is how to do comparison. So this is mathematics. So comparison. You know, I'm also a math teacher. Okay. So the objective of today's lesson is for you to understand what we use in comparison. So to understand fractions in comparison, so we're going to talk how fractions are used in comparison. I'm going to talk about percentage. Percentage. So on the side of the board, I can be able to write that. I'm going to talk here about ratio, and I'm going to talk here about proportion. Okay, so all these are what we use for comparison in mathematics. So as a fraction, okay, so you could be able to start. So the topic is comparison in math. So I'll be able to show you how these compare with one another. So like when we have, so let me write a table. So this is fraction. Let me have percentage, and let me have, it would be better take a different paper so to make it easier, and actually when you write in the middle. Okay, so let's see how fraction, percentage, ratio, and proportion work. So I start with the fraction, percentage, ratio, and I could just write proportion down here, proportion. Okay, so like if you have a half, yeah, a fraction is where you have one number. All numbers are fractions. All numbers are actually fractions, because even if the whole number is a fraction. But we talk of a half. Normally, in most cases, you talk of a half of a whole. Okay. So when you are talking of a fraction, like for example, when you talk of a half, it means that that is the whole is divided into two parts. The whole is divided into two parts, and so this is one of two parts. So one of two parts, so the whole is divided into two parts. Now when it comes to percentage, you are talking, so a half as a percentage, you can write it as 50%. 50%. The percent symbol there means 50 out of 100, and that can be simplified to a half, as you can see. But normally as a percentage, you write 50 out of 50%. Okay, so that's the same compare. So percentage, you are talking of the whole is divided into 100 parts. The whole is divided into 100 parts, and a percentage that is equal to a half is when you take, somebody is making noise in my class, better be muted. I don't know who is that talking. Yes? Yeah? Are you writing on the board, or you are just on the menu? I'm writing on a paper that is seated on my table, and I've used some two sticks to anchor. I'm recording this. I've used some two sticks on top of my table to focus on the paper down on the table. Are we together? So like I'm trying to move the paper is on the table, so the paper is like my blackboard. Okay, and I'm trying to move the paper so that it can appear on where the students can be able to see. So I've talked about fractions. Percentage is where the whole is divided into 100 parts, and as a percentage, what percentage is equal to a half is 50 out of 100. Now as a ratio, We normally use ratio in comparison, but this is again the number of parts. So the whole parts, how many parts you have divided something. Like a fraction of a half, it means you have divided into two parts, normally the denominator here. So you've divided, so as a ratio we write, so this is how so this is how, so a ratio, what you do is, if you divide it into two parts, so this is how you've divided the two parts, okay? So it's 1 to 1, so that other one part, because you'll always find that if you've divided an orange between two people, one orange between two people in the ratio 1 to 1, okay, then that means each one will go away with a half of the whole, because you need to add the total parts. So that will be like, so a fraction of a half means the number of parts you're talking about is 2, and as a ratio, a half would be written as. Sometimes what you find, there's a little bit of a confusion there, where some people would say a half is 1 to 2, 1 to 2, but 1 to 2, it means you are dividing the whole in three parts, okay. So of course it takes time to render it to come. You're dividing the whole in three parts. So a half is 1 to 1, where it means the whole is divided into two parts, which is 1 to 1. So this is how we write a half in the ratio form. And then a proportion comes in, especially when you are talking of the division that keeps on varying, like for example, let's say as a proportion, you find we talk of when you say 1 to 1. When you write 1 to 1, so you've said you've portioned out. So proportion here, proportioning means dividing. Proportioning means dividing, and that's how again is related with the ratio. You divide in the ratio, proportion something, or proportioning. Okay, so the portion, so comes with the word portion. So in say ratio to 1, so that is you divided 1, but more or less this is normally used to depict the way things vary. It's used to depict the way things vary, like I can be able to say that the amount of food eaten is proportional. So sometimes you can be able to say like the amount of food eaten, eaten is proportional to the number of people. The number of people present. So it means there's some kind of a variance, so that keep on changing. And when you talk like this is sometimes you find them quiet in saying directly proportional. So directly proportional is when you have one variant, which is the amount of food, if it changes, the other one, which is the number of people, also changes like that. Okay, changes, they are both increasing or they are both decreasing. That is called direct proportional. Okay, so it's used to compare variation with the two items. So there's a time now you mostly find yourself using proportion. But if two items are varying such that if one increases and the other decreases, then that would be called inverse proportion. Inverse proportion. Uh, Inverse proportion. So proportion in mathematics is used to compare two things, uh, or to say how they relate in terms of when one is varied. That's how you use proportion. And ratio is used to say how things are, something, a whole thing is divided. I'll say it could be a number of oranges. So we use ratio mainly when you're talking of dividing. When you're talking of dividing, okay? So you're dividing some whole thing or some number of things between people. And you can also express the same with the percentage, and you can express the same with the fraction. So that is it, guys. I've talked to you today about comparison in mathematics, and I've shown you that you can be able to use a fraction, percentage, ratio, or proportion in comparing things. Whereas proportion is used to compare things which are varying. As for fraction, percentage, and ratio is just about how you divide things. So in the next class, we are going to talk about how to solve problems that involve this, that involve fraction, ratio, percentage. And I have there an exercise. You have your assignment in the whiteboard FI on how to convert various fraction to percentage, percentage to fraction, fraction to ratio, ratio to percentage. Now, unless somebody asks a question, I can be able to answer. Okay, so guys, briefly, that is that about teaching with the microphone. So you can record this, teach your students very nicely. If you focus nicely and you've planned very well, you cannot have a lot of crossing like me there. But this is assuming I have my students online and they're seeing on the board. And you have some number of papers. These are just papers. So I just have some number of papers, one on top of the other. After I finish writing, I remove it, and then I put the other side. So that's how you can be able to teach a mobile phone. And I've taught you the mobile phone online. My Meet was on, and then I had my phone, and then I opened out screen sharing on the phone, and then I focused down on the table where I have papers where I was writing, and I was able to make use of the papers down on the table as a blackboard. So what happened is there's no need of you keeping your students idle out there. Occasionally meet them online like this, show them whiteboard FI, and now I can be able to post questions on whiteboard FI which they can answer, and even group work. After I've taught my class, I can put some group tasks on Jamboard, and my students will be able to deal with that. So that is all, guys. As for this lesson, it is already recorded because I'd put the video. I was using the video to that. Any question? I'll take only one question. One question from anybody. Just speak. Hello, are you mesmerized? Any question? One person.
We are there, sir.
Yeah. So I don't know what you have observed there, but if you put arrangement properly, okay, to speak. What have you, whatever from this?